Okay, let's get into this. We're doing a deep dive today into a really pivotal chapter, 2 Samuel 18.
It's packed, isn't it?
It really is. You've got this intense situation with King David, his son Absalom leading a rebellion,
Hmm.
and it all culminates in this single battle.
Exactly. And it forces you to grapple with this deep conflict
Yeah.
that David's facing, the king versus the father. It's raw human drama mixed with military strategy.
So that's what we'll unpack. The story, the decisions, the sheer emotion of it all.
Let's do it.
So the scene is set. David's gathered his loyal forces after fleeing Jerusalem.
Right. Absalom's taken the city.
And David starts organizing, appointing commanders, over thousands, hundreds, splitting the army 3 ways under Joab, Abishai, and Ittai the Gittite.
Standard military prep,
And interestingly, David says, okay, I'm going out with you. He intends to fight.
which immediately gets shot down by his own men.
Yeah, they're like, no,
Yeah.
absolutely not.
Their reasoning is pretty sound, though, from a strategic view. They tell him, you are worth 10,000 of us. Basically, you're too important to risk.
It's a powerful statement, isn't it? Shows their loyalty, but also their grasp of the bigger picture. His survival is paramount.
Absolutely. They understand his value isn't just as a fighter, but as the leader, the symbol. Better for him to support them from the city.
And David, well, he listens. He says, okay, I'll do whatever seems best to you. And he stands by the gate as they march out.
But before they go, this is crucial. He pulls aside Joab, Abishai, and Ittai.
His top commanders.
Yes, and he gives them a direct order. Be gentle with the young man Absalom for my sake.
For my sake. That personal plea. And the text makes a point of saying.
That all the troops heard him. This wasn't private. It was a public command.
So right there, you've got the setup for massive conflict. The mission is to crush the rebellion led by Absalom.
But the king's explicit public order is to protect the rebel leader. How do you square that circle on a battlefield?
It puts everyone, especially those commanders, in an impossible bind. Loyalty to the king versus loyalty to the father's wishes.
A huge tension hanging over everything.
Okay, so the army marches out, that command echoing in their ears. The battle happens in the forest of Ephraim.
And David's side wins decisively. The text mentions huge casualties for Israel. Absalom's forces 20,000 men.
A massive number, and then there's that really striking detail about the forest.
Oh yeah, the forest claimed more lives that day than the sword.
What do you make of that?
Well, it suggests this wasn't just open field combat. Fighting in a dense forest like Ephraim. Think of rough terrain, maybe ravines, thickets. It implies soldiers got lost, fell, were trapped, maybe couldn't get help for injuries. The environment itself was deadly.
So it adds this layer of uncontrollable chaos, nature being as dangerous as the enemy.
Exactly, a brutal setting for a brutal conflict.
And amidst all this, we find Absalom. His feat is, it's bizarre.
It really is. He's riding his mule, goes under a big oak tree.
And his head, some translations say his hair, but the point is his head gets tangled, caught fast in the branches.
And the mule just keeps going, leaving him hanging there. Stuck. Alive, but helpless.
What a way to be taken out of the fight, not by a spear, but by a tree.
Quite an image. So one of David's soldiers stumbles on him like this, sees the rebel leader hanging there.
And he does the sensible thing, reports it up the chain, tells Joab.
Right. And Joab's reaction is pure pragmatism, almost annoyed.
He basically says, what? You saw him. Why didn't you just kill him right then and there?
Exactly. He even says, I would have given you 10 shekels of silver and a warrior's belt. He sees a missed chance to end it quickly. Reward offered,
But the soldier, he pushes back.
Yeah.
And his reasoning goes straight back to David's command.
He says flat out, even for 1,000 shekels, I wouldn't lift a hand against the king's son. Because, he says, in our hearing, the king commanded you and Abishai and Ittai, protect the young man Absalom for my sake. He quotes it directly.
He heard it. Everyone heard it. He's choosing the king's personal command over the implied military necessity and Joab's potential reward.
And he has a bit of self-preservation too, doesn't he? He says something like, if I had done it, the king would find out nothing's hidden from him, and you, Joab, you wouldn't have stood by me.
Smart soldier. He understands the political risks involved in disobeying David's direct personal order.
It perfectly shows that clash of loyalties. But Joab, he's got no time for this debate.
No patience at all. He says, look, I'm not going to stand around here waiting for you.
And then Joab himself takes action. Brutally decisive.
He takes 3 javelins, not 1, 3, and plunges them into Absalom's heart, while he's still alive, hanging there.
A very deliberate final act by the commander himself.
Yeah.
And just to be sure.
10 of Joab's armor-bearers then surround him and finish the job. Strike him until he's dead.
No ambiguity there. Absalom is eliminated.
And as soon as that's done, Joab sounds the trumpet, calls off the pursuit.
Right, the objective's achieved. The rebellion's leader is gone. No need for further slaughter of the Israelites who were following him.
And what about Absalom's body?
It's unceremonious. They throw him into a big pit in the forest.
Just a pit.
Yeah, and cover it with a huge pile of rocks. A very stark contrast
To the monument he built for himself.
Exactly. The text points out that Absalom, during his life, had set up this pillar in the King's Valley. Named it after himself because he had no son, he thought, to carry on his name. He wanted a legacy.
So he builds this grand monument to be remembered.
And ends up under a pile of stones in a ditch in the woods. The irony is just crushing. His ambition for fame versus his actual end.
Wow. Okay, so battle's over. Absalom's dead. Now, someone has to tell David.
And Joab knows this is not going to be good news for the king. Not the kind of victory report David wants to hear.
So we get this whole drama with the messengers. Ahimaaz, son of Zadok, steps up first. He's eager. Let me run. Tell the king the good news. God has delivered him.
Framing it entirely as victory. But Joab holds him back. He tells him basically, not today. You're not the guy for this message, because the king's son is dead. Joab gets it. The personal loss will eclipse the military win for David. Maybe he's even protecting Ahimaaz from delivering news that won't bring any reward, only pain.
Interesting. So Joab sends someone else instead.
Yeah, he calls over a Cushite messenger, gives him a simple instruction. Go, tell the king what you've seen. Just report the facts.
But Ahimaaz doesn't give up. He insists. Please, whatever happens, let me run too.
Joab seems a bit baffled. Why? What's the point? There's no reward in this news for you. But Ahimaaz is determined.
Come what may, he says.
So Joab finally shrugs, metaphorically speaking, and says, okay, run.
And Ahimaaz, taking a shortcut across the plain, actually overtakes the Cushite. He's faster.
Meanwhile, David's waiting back at the city gate, anxious. The watchman sees a runner.
And David, clinging to hope, says what?
If he's alone, it must be good news. His mind immediately goes to a positive outcome. Then the watchman sees the second runner, and David thinks, okay, more good news.
The watchman then recognizes the first runner by his style. That's Ahimaaz running.
And David connects Ahimaaz with positive things. He's a good man, David says. He must be bringing good news. Still hoping.
So Ahimaaz arrives, bows down, gives the official victory spiel. All is well. Praise God. Your enemies are defeated.
Standard victory announcement. But David cuts right through it.
One question burns in his mind.
Is the young man Absalom safe? That's all he seems to care about.
And Ahimaaz, he dodges. He kind of waffles.
Yeah, he says something like, I saw a big commotion when Joab sent me in the Cushite, but I don't really know what it was about.
Yeah.
He evades the direct question about Absalom.
He can't bring himself to deliver the blow, so David tells him, step aside and wait.
Then the Cushite arrives. He also delivers the news of victory, God's deliverance.
And David asks him the exact same question, that desperate paternal question. Is the young man Absalom safe?
And the Cushite.
Yeah.
Well, he doesn't evade. Maybe he's just following orders to report what he saw, or maybe he lacks that personal connection that made Ahimaaz hesitate.
How does he phrase it?
He uses this symbolic, almost courtly language, but the meaning is brutally clear. May the enemies of my lord the king, and all who rise up to harm you, be like that young man.
Oof. There it is. The confirmation, Absalom is dead.
And David's reaction,
Yeah.
it's instantaneous and shattering. The text says he was shaken.
That feels like an understatement for what happens next.
Absolutely. He can't maintain composure. He goes up to the private room over the gateway just to weep, to be alone with this overwhelming grief.
And that's where we hear his lament. It's just heartbreaking.
He cries out, oh, my son Absalom, my son Absalom. If only I had died instead of you, oh Absalom, my son, my son.
Repetition, my son, my son. And wishing he could have died instead, even after Absalom tried to kill him, tried to take his throne. The father's love just pours out.
It completely overshadows the victory, the survival of his kingdom. In that moment, he's not King David. He's just a grieving father. It's incredibly powerful. It shows that deep, tragic conflict within him.
So, looking back at this whole chapter, what really jumps out, we saw the soldiers caught between orders.
Yeah, that loyalty conflict. David's command versus Joab's pragmatism.
We saw Absalom's strange end, almost like fate intervening before Joab did.
The irony of the tree, and then the contrasting messages, Ahimaaz trying to soften it, the Cushite just delivering it.
And finally, David's grief just consuming everything, the victory feels hollow to him.
It really lays bare the cost of leadership, doesn't it? David the king needed the rebellion crushed. David the father couldn't bear the price. Joab becomes the enforcer of that harsh political reality that David couldn't face head-on regarding his son.
Joab did what needed to be done for the kingdom, even against the king's personal wish.
Exactly. And David's reaction just underscores how, even in these epic struggles for power, those fundamental human bonds, like a parent's love, flawed as it might be, can remain the most potent force. You feel the weight of that crown on David's head.
It's a heavy chapter. Lots to think about.
Definitely. And maybe something for you, the listener, to consider is this. You have David's explicit command to protect Absalom. You have Joab's calculation he must die for the kingdom to survive. And you have that soldier who refused Joab, citing David's command. When you look at those choices, what does this story really tell us about how we navigate obedience, loyalty, and our own convictions when faced with conflicting demands or authorities? It's an ancient story, but maybe those dilemmas aren't so ancient after all.